So you're thinking about moving to St. Albert, Alberta, but you want to have all of the facts before you decide to jump in and make that move. Well, you have come to the right video because today we're going to be talking about the information, the pros and the cons, the nitty gritty about living in St. Albert, Alberta. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name is Brian. I'm a real estate agent here in the Edmonton metro area, and I get calls and texts from people every single day who want to move to Edmonton and surrounding area, cities like St. Albert, from these expensive cities like Toronto, Vancouver, Calgary, Montreal, and the list goes on. So if that sounds like you, I'd love for you to get in touch. I'm going to have all my information in the description so you can reach out however you feel comfortable, and we can help you make a smooth move to the Edmonton area. Now, if you want to stay on top of the market, if you always want to be in the know, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're always the first to know about the current market in Edmonton. You can keep that leg up on the competition and always make sure you are in the know. Now, guys, we're going to be jumping into this video about the pros and the cons of St. Albert. We're actually going to split this video into 3 different sections. Now, the first section, we're going to be talking general information that you need to know about the city of St. Albert before you make a move here. The second section, we're going to run into some pros and cons. Now, every city obviously has its pros and cons. St. Albert is no exception. We're going to be talking about what those are in the second section. Now, the third section that we're going to be talking about, we're actually going to jump into Google Maps and do a little bit of a Google Maps tour of the city so that you can get a more visual layout of what it's like to live here in St. Albert. If you're a visual learner like I am, I love these Google Map tours. They're going to help you get a real sense, a real visual sense of what it's like to live in the city. You're going to be able to take a look at some of the shops, the schools, the recreation centers, all of the above. So make sure to stick around to the end of the video so that you can see that. Now, forgive me, I'm here in my living room today. We just moved into a new house. I'm still getting the office set up. So you're going to have to bear with me as we do the video here in the living room. But let's jump right into the information and statistics about living in St. Albert. Now, the first thing that I want to mention is that St. Albert is consistently ranked as one of the top cities to live in, not only in the Edmonton metro area and not only in Alberta, but in all of Canada. In fact, reports from places like Maclean's and Money Sense have ranked St. Albert as one of the top cities to live in all of Canada, if not the top city to live in Canada. There's a lot of hype when it comes to St. Albert. A lot of people talk about it. It's a very desirable place to live here in the Edmonton metro area. We're going to be jumping into some of the pros about living in the city and why people talk about it so much. What makes it so great? Now, St. Albert sits on the Sturgeon River. It sits on the northwest side of Edmonton. So this river is running to the north of Edmonton and kind of cuts through the city. It really gives a lot of walking trails and a lot of views of the river valley. It's a lush green scenery that you're going to have here in St. Albert, and that river just adds to it. Now, the city has a population of about 70,000 people and a median household income of about 120,000, which is just slightly above what the median household income is going to be in the Edmonton area as a whole. The main demographic here in St. Albert is going to be people in their 40s and 50s and teenagers as well. So there are going to be some older families here in St. Albert. If you have teenagers yourself, or if you feel like your family is just growing faster than you can keep up with, then you're definitely going to feel at home in St. Albert. There are lots of families and family-oriented activities here in the city. Now, the last statistic that I want to talk about here in St. Albert is going to be the fact that it's mostly single-family homes and duplexes here in the city. There aren't a lot of apartments to speak of. It's going to be quite a low percentage of apartments in terms of the main dwellings here in the city. It's going to be largely single-family homes and duplexes in the city. Now, we're going to jump right into some pros and cons here about living in St. Albert. The first pro that we're going to be talking about is how green the city is. Now, I know what you're thinking. I say this about just about every city that we talk about here in the Edmonton area, but this is especially true in St. Albert. Now, as I mentioned, you have the Sturgeon River that's running directly through the city. So you're going to have this beautiful river valley, and the city's really taken advantage of that with lots of paved walking trails along this river. Now, I was out in St. Albert just the other day filming a vlog tour, which is also up on our channel. So if you really want to get a visual sense of what it's like to live in St. Albert, be sure to check that out. I'm going to link that at the end of this video. But while I was out there filming near the river, I saw people walking their dogs, lots of people having picnics by the river, people out for a jog or biking, or just enjoying a fall walk through the afternoon there. It really was a beautiful scenery to have, and lots of people were taking advantage of that on a nice fall day. So it really is a centerpiece here in the city to have that river that's running through the city and lots of paved walking trails along that. Now, even as you go away from the river, you're going to have beautiful scenery all throughout. St. Albert, if you're tired of the concrete jungle, St. Albert's going to give you a nice breath of fresh air. With trees all throughout the city, in all these neighborhoods, you're really going to feel like you're enveloped in all these trees. If you like to have nature with you throughout the city, then St. Albert's going to be a great place for you. We also have the St. Albert Botanical Gardens. So if you really like to get into it and see all the flowers and all the plants and trees, you're going to have that option as well. But there's just a ton of opportunity to be engulfed in nature here in the city of St. Albert. Now, the second pro that we're going to be talking about is how safe the city is. Now, the St. Albert policing offers reports, and it shows that it's one of the safest places to live in all of Alberta. Some years it ranks as the safest place. It has the lowest crime of all the cities in Alberta. And that's just going to show you how safe this city is. Now, I know a lot of people, that's one of the main things that they care about. They want to make sure that them and their families are safe at all times. And you're going to be able to get that here in St. Albert. They have a great policing force, as well as a lot of your neighbors here in St. Albert are going to take great pride in how safe the city is. And they're going to be looking out for each other as well. Now, the third pro that I wanted to talk about when it comes to living here in St. Albert is going to be the amenities that you're going to have. Now, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, St. Albert is the third largest city in the Edmonton metro area. It's going to be just behind Edmonton, obviously, and then also Sherwood Park, which is sitting just on the east side of Edmonton. So you're going to be sitting at about 70,000 people. Now, the amenities that you have here in St. Albert is really all you need. You're going to have everything from grocery stores to your more niche shops like a Sport Chek, Home Depot, a lot of the stuff that you feel like you don't need every day, but you do like to have at your fingertips as well. We're going to have Indigo, you have a movie theater, we have a Costco, car dealerships here in St. Albert. You're going to have really everything that you need in your day-to-day life and beyond. The only time you're really going to feel like you have to leave the city is if you want some of the big things that Edmonton's going to have to offer, like West Edmonton Mall or Rogers Place. But for the most part, you're going to have all the recreation centers, all the shopping, and all the restaurants that you need at your fingertips here in St. Albert. Now, the last pro that I wanted to talk about when it comes to St. Albert is good healthcare. Now, St. Albert's one of the only cities in the Edmonton metro area that has its own hospital. So heaven forbid, if there is an accident that happens, you can rest assured that you're not miles and miles or hours away from a hospital, but you do have great health care within the city at a short distance. Now let's get right into some cons about living in St. Albert. Now the first con that we're going to be talking about is high property taxes. Now in the Edmonton area in general, especially in the city of Edmonton, when you're looking at your property taxes, you're typically going to be paying 0.95% to 1% of the property's value per year in property taxes. As you get into some other places here in the Edmonton metro area, like Strathcona County, where Sherwood Park is, you're going to be paying as low as 0.75% of the property value in annual property taxes. Now here in St. Albert, we're going to be paying one of the highest rates in the Edmonton area at 1.1%. So let's take a hypothetical and say you have a $500,000 house. In Edmonton, you're going to be paying about $4750 in property taxes for the year. And in St. Albert, you're going to be paying about $5,500 per year in property taxes. So that'll be about $750 per year more in St. Albert than you would have to pay in Edmonton. Now that might not be a bank breaker for most, but it is an additional cost that you have to factor in when you're moving to St. Albert. Now the second con that we're going to be talking about when it comes to St. Albert is also housing and money related. But the housing is going to be a little more expensive in St. Albert than it is in Edmonton or some of the other areas in the Edmonton metro area, because it is such a desirable community to live in for those reasons that we talked about, all those pros. It is just going to be a little more expensive to live in St. Albert and to buy a home in the city than it would in Edmonton or some of the other cities in the Edmonton metro area like Beaumont or Spruce Grove. Now that's really all I could come up with. I had to nitpick a little bit to find some cons about living in St. Albert, but that is what we have. So there's the pros and the cons and the stats about living in St. Albert. We're going to be jumping into Google Maps now, giving you a visual sense a visual layout of what it's like to live in the city. So let's jump right into that now. All right, guys, we have jumped here into Google Maps. Now, as you can see, I've got the whole Edmonton area pulled up here. Now, one of the things before we jump into St. Albert, so the airport is going to be down here in Nisku. So one of the other cons that you could make about St. Albert is just how far it is away from the airport. It is kind of on the opposite end of Edmonton. So if you're somebody who travels and flies frequently, then that's definitely going to be a con for you. But as you can see, St. Albert's got great proximity to the city of Edmonton. Now, as we zoom in here, you're going to see that it runs right along the Anthony Henday, which is the ring road that we have around the city of Edmonton here. So if you're somebody who works in Edmonton, if you're commuting regularly into the city, or even on the offhand when you're coming in to visit the mall or just do some errands here in the city, you're going to have great access to be able to do that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, you can see that the Sturgeon River is running here through the center of the city of St. Albert and into Big Lake here. Now, the city has done a great job of building around this. There are tons of paved trails along the city, lots of picnic benches and other benches that you can sit and enjoy the views and really just soak up the nature here along the river. Now, one of the things that you can see already, the St. Albert Botanic Park is just sitting on the northeast side of the city, right along the river here. So that's great if you want to go out and enjoy even more nature, all the plants and the flowers. That's a great place to do it. Now, most of the shopping that you're going to have is going to run along Highway 2 here, which runs into Edmonton and then up through St. Albert and goes farther north. So a lot of the shopping, I'm going to zoom in here so you can see some of that. I'm not going to list everything here, but you can see that we got lots of grocery stores, a lot of restaurants and fast food down here along the south side. As we come up, you're going to have more restaurants, and then we're going to get some of that niche shopping that you don't need every day, but your stuff like Sport Check and Winners. Canadian Tire is going to be here for all the things that you need from there, and Chapters, Staples. Really everything that you need is going to be here in St. Albert. You don't really feel like you have to go into Edmonton very often. We have lots of restaurant and eating options along the Highway 2 here. Now, as we come up, you're going to see that we do have the Sturgeon Community Hospital. I'll zoom out just so you can see where that is in the city. That is on the north central side of the city here. So again, great to have that in the city. You don't feel like you have to leave or really be worried about having a long trip to make if you do have an emergency. And we'll just keep heading up here. So we do have the landmark cinemas up here, Home Depot, Walmart, and then we're going to get to Costco at the very northern edge of the city up here. Now, as we zoom out, another thing I want you to pay attention to is all the green spaces that you're going to have here in St. Albert. There are a ton of large parks here in the city, lots of options to get out and enjoy some sports or recreation, whatever you like to do. There is a ton of room to do it here in St. Albert. We're going to have some golf bordering the city. As you saw, that there's the Lone Spruce driving range up here on the northwest side of the city. You're going to have the Glendale Club, which is just southwest of the city as well. You're going to have great access to nature here in St. Albert. It's very easy to get out of the city and get into nature if you're into it. Now, the one other thing that I wanted to mention here on the map tour, we're going to have Service Place here on the southeast side of the city. That's going to be a large recreation center that has a pool. You're going to have skating rinks, soccer fields, a fitness center, really all that you need to get active. So that's going to be there on the southeast side of the city. Now, thanks again, guys, for sticking around to the end of the video. If you appreciated this video, I'd love if you could give it a like so that other people can find this content as well. Now, if you're thinking about moving here to the city of Edmonton or the surrounding area, places like St. Albert, again, my information is in the description, so be sure to check that out and give me a shout. We can help you make a smooth move to the Edmonton area. And if you want to have your finger on the pulse on the Edmonton market, if you always want to be the first to know about the current market in Edmonton, then be sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. Thanks again, guys, for sticking around, and we will see you in the next video.